every brand on the face of the planet is going to be using AI to create content. Every single one. It will be as pervasive as the internet or the energy that we use to even create this video. If you don't believe me, just look in the last 2 weeks where Meta Vibes has launched, where Sora 2 has launched, where there's now social media platforms that are entirely created with AI content, right? It is happening right now. But the problem is that most brands are not good at creating this content, and they need to be. So what we're going to spend time on is I'm actually going to walk you through step by step exactly how to think about creating AI content and then how to actually create it yourself for your brand. And this is based on working with literally hundreds of brands that use our platform in the Raelion side, but we're going to walk you through without any sort of extra tooling at all, how to create this content yourself and the systems behind it. Now, first up, I always just like to level set. There's a lot of garbage AI output out there today. And this is why, frankly, most brands just think that it's not even possible to create good AI content. And look, we've all seen it, right? I've seen it. I experience it every day. You all experience the slop every day. It is out there, right? Whether it's too many hands that are on there, too many M dashes clearly in the copy, maybe too many emojis present in copy, or it's repetitive, or it's overly rhetorical. I don't know why AI so often asks this sort of rhetorical, like this call and response thing in the copywriting. Drives me nuts, right? And just even as a couple examples that to me are particularly amusing, right? It's like, here's one of people writing wiener dogs, right? They're like horses. This is not what this should look like. Terrible AI result. Another one, I'm sure you all have seen this often. I do not know why so often AI has a hard time of like having people in different poses and everything else, but it does. It does a terrible job so often. But the reality is you can actually create really good AI content too. So let me show you a few examples of awesome AI content. So here's AI that I created. So this is all, stuff that I've created myself. So this is a real AI image. And this is actually of Kuru Footwear. They're an awesome brand. They're based out of Salt Lake City. And in fact, this was so good that the head of brand marketing at Kuru Footwear reached out to me to ask how we actually went through and made this image, right? Because it's so on brand and so spot on. Here's a couple other examples, right? Hexclad. So this is Hexclad. I'm a big Hexclad fan personally. This is their knife. This is not really old moldy bread. So rest assured, it's not super gross. It's a cinder block. Now, I can assure you, Hexclad knives do not, at least I can't assure you, I'm fairly certain they do not cut cinder blocks, right? This is an AI created image, but it looks spot on. Same with over here on our right here, you can see I use Nana Banana. You can see on our right here, this is also a completely fake image, right? Their products are spot on, but the image itself is fake. And this is the kind of stuff that we're going to cover. We'll get to images, quite a bit later, but this is what we're going to cover, right? It's how to help you understand how to create great content like this on the image side. That'll actually be another video. And then on the text side for analysis, for copywriting, which is what we'll cover in this one. So, why do we, if we can see really good results, it then begs the question of like, why is it so hard for us to create really good AI output? And from what I've seen across these hundreds of brands that we've worked with, some that we advise, some that we use our products, and what we've seen ourselves on the Raelion side, my company, is it's really a mindset shift to start, right? And that mindset shift is if you treat AI like hiring your best employee ever, like that's kind of the right mentality to take. And what happens is that most of us skip the onboarding of that employee, right? So if you think about it this way, right? If you went out and you hired a copywriter, or if you hired, let's say a designer, you went out and you hired this awesome killer designer, right? And you're going to pay them $200,000 a year because they're a killer. They do an amazing job. You wouldn't then bring them on board and then in their first week, not give them any assets to use, for their design, not give them any brand context, not give them access to your product catalog, right? In terms of what your products are like, not tell them about your customers, and then ask them the day before your promotional email is supposed to go out the door to design an awesome email and expect that email to perform well, right? Like that's unrealistic. And then I'd say, frankly, if you did do that, that designer probably will not stay with your brand for very long because those are unrealistic expectations. But that's literally every day, like what most people do with AI. And frankly, that's what I've been guilty of AI in doing. And sort of in the AI lingo, what we're talking about is context. This onboarding that we're discussing is actually context, right? It's helping make sure that this AI agent, this AI person, understands everything that it needs to understand about your brand and the task at hand to actually perform well with it, right? To actually do the task. And I think one thing I want to even shout out here that's so important, it's so often missed. so many people have been led astray with prompt engineering, right? And I'd say 90% of really good AI output has nothing to do with the prompt itself, right? That's like, it's the instruction. And it has everything to do with the actual context that goes into like what the ask that you're working towards. So like, what do I mean, right? If you asked AI, if we go back to this image here, if I asked AI to create this image, right? If I just said, hey, create an image of two people, one person showing a peace sign with some products with the mountains behind him, right? Like that's the ask, right? Give me an image, a hero image maybe, with two folks wearing shoes and the mountains behind him. Like that's the prompt. Now you can make that prompt a little bit, like that ask a little bit better, but what makes this so rich, right, is if you actually give it the context, the understanding of like, what should the shoes look like? What brand is this for? What should the people look like? In fact, like what do people care about as a whole about this brand? Like all of that stuff is not in fact the prompt, that's the ask. It's the actual context that goes into it. In fact, if you look at Anthropic, they've been pushing hard to help people understand that context engineering, as it's called, again, it kind of goes to our onboarding concepts, that context engineering is actually the most important factor when it comes to getting really good results from your AI, from getting kind of the output that you want. Okay, so enough of kind of the high level strategy. Let's jump into like, how do we make this practical? How do we actually get the AI to produce great results? So to me, when it comes to copywriting, when it comes to analysis, there's really 6 essential context details, context data points that you need to make sure that your results from an AI standpoint are going to be really good. And these are the 6 on the page. And we're going to dive into each one specifically. I'm going to show you detailed examples. So, keep with me here, because then at the end of this, what we're actually going to do is I'm going to show you 2 different examples of this in action, one in ChatGPT and one in Claude, because we're also going to talk about which models are best to do this stuff for. But let's dive in, because this is the meat of it, right? This is, if you want to know how do you create great AI results, it's getting these things honed in and fine-tuned for you. So first up, brand summary. So when we talk about brand summary, and I've used True Classic as an example here, what you'll notice here is this is not super dense. In other words, this is actually pretty short overall, right? The brand overview, the brand personality, it's detailed, right? It's got the important information in it. But what I didn't do, and hear me now, what I didn't do is I didn't take my 50-page brand guidelines document and just slam it into a Claude project or into ChatGPT. I didn't do that, and I'm not telling you to do that. In fact, I'm telling you not to do that. And there's a specific reason for it. And it's because there's an idea of what's called context rot, right? In other words, there's actually a finite resource, like a finite amount of context of understanding, that the AI can actually have, right? And this is for every single LLM, whether it's Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, like all of them have this context window. And this window of context, as you fill it up, and before you even get to kind of the max capacity, as you fill up this window of context, the AI actually gets dumber in a way. Like, that's not technically what happens, but its results get worse as you fill this context window. So that's why just taking this sort of really broad, generic 50-page brand guideline is a terrible way to expect to get good results from AI. Instead, what you want to do is you actually want to take all of the salient information from that 50-page brand guideline and turn it into these kind of 6 elements that we're talking about here. That's why this brand summary and the 6 kind of elements that I'm talking about was going to outperform, I would wager, for everybody listening to this, probably everybody or 99% of what you've done already in ChatGPT or in Claude, because frankly, we see it across the board. So, brand summary, this is kind of how you want to have it. Provide an overview of the brand, provide personality around the brand. This is a great starting point. Next up, voice and tone. Now, from a pure copywriting standpoint, this is super important. This is probably one of the most important, elements of context, context data points you can provide to the AI to make sure that it's really going to match kind of your brand's voice and tone. Now there's a couple of things I want to mention here. So you notice I've got specific language rules overall. I've got sentence structures. You've got these phrases that we avoid, phrases that we use. 2 things just to call out. The whole phrases, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. The whole phrases that we use and phrases to avoid here. Don't overdo that. Do not overdo that, especially the phrases we avoid. Don't overdo those. And there's a reason, and it's because as you give context to the AI, while it's a supercomputer, while it's a super intelligence and it's really, really smart, it's also kind of dumb sometimes, right? As we have all experienced countless times. And the reason I say it's kind of dumb sometimes is if you actually overload it with references of things to avoid, we have all seen this. AI is not always the best at following instructions. So you want to be really careful about what you actually ask it to not do, especially when it comes to phrasing, because if you put too much in, what happens is it's like it confuses, that context, it confuses the AI a little bit. And then you might start to see more instances of the phrases you're asking it to avoid occurring. So I'd say be really choosy. And instead, it's called kind of negative semantics. Instead, you want to talk about the things that you really want the AI to do and the things that you want to see. For instance, if you didn't want stuff to happen in a desert, you wouldn't say, make sure that you never put anything in a desert. Instead, you'd say, let's always make sure that our scenes are in a lush green environment, right? That's kind of the idea of this, of kind of providing more guidance about what you want to see. It's like positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement. So voice and tone, really important. Gearing it kind of this way, again, is going to really guide the AI to understand like how you want to structure, all this sort of stuff. Next up, product details. Another one that I see as a mistake all the time. When it comes to creating your product details, so many folks literally just take a CSV file with product names and like maybe a brief description, and they load that in, and then you get annoyed. And like I've had, again, done this too. Like, can I get annoyed where I'm like, why in the heck doesn't the AI understand my products? Why isn't it giving more details? Because you need the context. So for every single product, you're going to go through something like this, right? Where you're going to say, here's the product name, put in the colorways, the sizes. I personally like to even add in some customer language, about the product, which you can pull from reviews, for instance, because it helps humanize and helps the AI understand even like why customers like the product. The key differentiators from a USP standpoint, the functional job. All of this, again, helps the AI understand of the products that you have. What does it need to know about it? Why is it important? Why is it valuable? And so on. Other item here, customer personas. I'd say, honestly, customer personas and the voice and tone are probably the two most critical aspects of the context when it comes to like copywriting in particular. So if you want to get really great ad headlines, if you want to get really great, email copy, really get, video copy, what have you, making sure your voice and tone and your customer personas in particular are nailed is going to have some of the biggest impact, more so than brand summary and sometimes more so than product details, depending on how complex that product is. So customer personas, couple things here. Again, this is not just some like random, like, a really lightweight thing that's been put together. One, don't overdo it. Again, like you have that context window, but two, I really try to hone in here, as you can see. And again, you can make this your own. This is just a simple template, but I really try to hone into like, how does this customer persona feel? What are their actual pain points? What are quotes, again, from reviews that they've shared? I like to give them even kind of a name or an idea behind it. And this is just so that way, as the AI is coming up with these ideas, it's got a strong understanding of like who these people are, because that's going to help shape, the copy, and it's going to help marry kind of what the voice and tone should be to what who you're actually trying to talk to. All right, last one. So of our 6 here, right, we're now on top performers and bottom performers. Last one. So performance data. Couple things with this. So this is actually really, really important when it comes to getting really good AI results for a couple reasons, right? Everything that we've talked about so far is all soft stuff, right? It's just helping the AI understand, how do we talk? Who do we talk to? What are our products? Our brand as a whole. Now, the performance data is where we can begin to marry, not unlike what Meta does, right? Where we can begin to marry the things that we've said or the creative that we have to what's actually worked, right, from a performance standpoint, whether that's email performance, meta ad performance, what have you. So performance data is super important. One pro tip, big pro tip here. You notice these are CSVs. Provide the data in a CSV format for 2 reasons. One, for whatever reason, the AI can actually compute this data better. LLMs do really nice with CSV data. They seem to, for whatever reason, struggle with JSON structured data. If you don't know what that means, just ignore it, use CSV data. Second reason is the CSV data actually preserves your context limits better. So it's more compressed effectively than other formats. So it makes sure that you don't hit that context rot point too quickly. So CSV data is really, really important. Second thing here is you think about your top performers and bottom performers. The idea that we talked about before on our voice and tone of kind of not overdoing it applies here. So I would recommend actually even experimenting, with how much data that you have as a brand. There's two paths that you can take here. The first is you can pull out sort of your biggest winners. So say your top 5 or 10 top performing ads or emails, for example, or landing pages, and put that in as context and the data around it. And then I would take maybe your bottom 3, right? Could be 5. Again, I would experiment with it. But again, what you don't want to do is you don't want to over bias the AI. You don't want to over bias the LLM in the context, because what can happen is if you put too many winners in, then it's going to try to make everything look like those winners, which might be bad, which might be good, but it also may be bad if you're trying to get different angles, and it might be harder to sort of force the AI to give you better ideas on angles. On the bottom performing side is you don't want to sort of over index to where the AI starts inadvertently using kind of the bottom performer data to try to create a strong winner. So that's where, again, you want to kind of seed it with like your worst things to sort of avoid, or even some nuanced misses, but you don't want to overdo it on both sides. I would generally not recommend just loading in all of your performance data unless you're doing it strictly from the standpoint of analysis and not for writing copy. Okay. I just went through a ton of stuff there. What does this look like practically? So one thing actually, even just to hit on really quickly before we go to that, the model that you chooses matter. We're going to have a whole nother video on this, but I'm specifically talking about ChatGPT and Claude in this case. We'll cover Gemini as well, because Gemini is actually quite good at analysis. But ChatGPT is way better than Claude at analysis, and Claude is way better than ChatGPT at writing. So what we're going to do now is, as you spent time talking about these 6 essentials, we're actually going to take what we've done here and we're going to create a project in Claude and a project in ChatGPT. So you can see firsthand, like, how do you take everything we just talked about and then like make it a reality so you can start doing this yourself. So that's what we're going to do now. Here's my brand overview. I'm going to go into ChatGPT here and I'm going to say project, new project. This is going to be our AI content YouTube example. Great. And create project here. We're waiting. Great. Close that guy here. So now you can add files, right? So new chat, you can add files. So this is where we can effectively add different files. Okay. I'm going to add our files now. Boom. We're loading those in. We're going to do the same thing on the Claude side. The nice thing with Claude is you can actually say add text content. I frankly do this a lot. In this case, we're going to just do upload from device because I already created a bunch of files for us. There we go. Our stuff's in there. Our stuff is finishing loading there, and we're ready to go. So now we can kind of see the difference even between Claude and ChatGPT here. So you're kind of like, honestly, this is as easy as it is. So maybe before I even jump into that, this is literally as easy as it is. So like when it comes to creating these projects and getting your context in, you literally just want to create files for each one of these things like I did, and then you go and create a new project like we just did. On both of these, and you're ready to go. In ChatGPT, you could create a custom GPT for copywriting. I'd say I honestly don't see much of a difference between the custom GPT and the project. I frankly find the projects easier to work with and faster, personally. So I tend to lean more towards that because the output results are often better quality on ChatGPT when using a project versus like a custom GPT. But you can work it out either way you want. So in this case, so let's say if I said, do an analysis of our top performers. Actually, in this case, I forgot. I don't have real true classic performance data, so I can't do that. But I could say, come up with 4 ad ideas focused on our primary persona and our crew neck product. Right, so I'm going to say this. Great. I'm going to do the same thing in Claude here. So let them go head to head here for a minute. So now here's what we're going to tend to find, right, is when it comes to ChatGPT, you can already see that stuff drives me nuts. But anyway, when it comes to ChatGPT, it's just very on the copy front, and this is why I say Claude's better. On the copy front, it's just very corporate. It's robotic. We've tuned it pretty well, with kind of the context that we gave it, but you're still going to see like a lot of the same structure, right? I mean, you can already see just sort of like how consistent. I mean, like this is garbage. Just it's like, okay, this one's the first one that's not too bad, but like you can just see how AI-esque it is, right? Versus here, I mean, look at that. No M dashes. It's got the hook ID already. It's got the body ID already. Like dad's closet, awesome. It's got different angles. The wife test. I mean, like straight away in the 60 seconds that we just went through this, if you're ever curious, this is why Claude crushes in copywriting and why ChatGPT does not. I mean, like, it is night and day, the difference here. And this is with good context, right? So you can see like this is actually quite good, as compared to this, and the context is even the same. Now, if we asked it to do a data analysis, ChatGPT would do a very good job and be much more in depth and accurate. And Claude, you have to check with Claude. It sometimes looks really nice, but it often gets the math wrong. So just check for with Claude on that. So with all that said, this is kind of, if we bring it all back around, I come back to, again, every brand on the planet is going to be using AI to create content, right? Every single brand will. Now, the challenge, again, for many brands, and for you all is the same before this video, is a lot of them don't have this understanding that we just went through. They don't understand context. They don't understand how to onboard and kind of provide the data that the AI needs to produce good results. They also don't understand like which AI to even use, right? I mean, again, if you're using ChatGPT, you're going back to your garbage AI output. You want to know what crap quality looks like from a copywriting standpoint? It looks like this. And this is with good context. You want to know what good copywriting looks like? It looks much closer to this, and this is without any tuning. The models matter, the context matter. Now you know how to do it yourself.